Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Radio. Maybe it's the station of your wildest dreams.
Radio.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Today, I wanted to focus on how people are unprepared for the downfall of Western civilization, and most specifically, the U.S. Republic, and how fast this can happen. There will be cars speeding by and things beeping in the background. As always, this is fairly unedited, apart from some of the images and things I put up to augment what I'm talking about. Be that as it may, what's happening now across the world, but more specifically in the United States of America, where I sit, and pretty much so in whatever you would call Western civilization. And that would mean European countries and other free sovereign nations that have decided to adopt trade and policies and a certain rule of law that's based on natural law. In other words, common sense, universal laws, truth, basically, as opposed to edicts and dictates of authoritarian, totalitarian, socialist, communist, fascist, what have you. Now, this is most prevalent right now, and has been for a long time in the EU, particularly, with what Brussels has done. Initially, it was the reason behind Brexit, but that has been so warped and distorted, and I don't want to get into a UK thing. And again, these cars, it's louder in the wintertime than it is in the summertime. Makes no sense. The windows are closed. It's just a quick aside. Anyone who's watched my videos realizes I take asides. But they're speeding down. I live in a neighborhood. It's like 25 mile an hour zone, and they're like coming down like it's a road rally. Anyway, another problem I have with things. But that's all we are. We're plagued with problems. Wear a mask. Do this. Do that. But what I'm about to present to you is my ideas, my thoughts on how 2021 will end up being, or will end up making 2020 look like the good old days. And that's completely hard to believe for the average person. And I understand that. Well, I kind of understand it. I mean, personally, I don't understand it because it just doesn't compute in my bioelectric android brain. But for other people, look, the people who have taken, there are two types of groups of people that have seized power around the world, all right, and who are primarily have their focus on Western civilization. And that is to destroy Western civilization completely. All right? They want to bring on, and I've spoken about this in previous videos, the old world order. Not the new world order. The old world order. And the old world order is enslavement. Is 3,000 to 5,000 people ruling the entire planet. All right? And with a few, as I say, puppeteers way up at the top that nobody even knows who the hell they are. Okay? So their goal, these two distinct different groups are, one, the actual bloodline, blue blood, Davos set old world order themselves. In other words, the people who are descended from that group of people that have always felt themselves they have a right and ownership to the land and the countries, and that they are somehow far superior to the average human being. You know, they're special somehow because of their king. You know, this kingship. You know, the monarchy. You know, whatever you want to call it. Very annoying people. You know, the arrogant, wealthy trust fund loud stomping babies. All right, that jet set around the world and get caught up in all kinds of issues that they make seem are important, but the reality is it's just that they know nothing. These people have never done anything. They don't work. They have offices, they have companies, but they didn't build them by working hard. They built them through getting free money from their families, from the banking system, through trust funds, what have you. Okay? And then you have the people that work for them or follow them or are manipulated by them subconsciously, consciously, sometimes through propaganda, sometimes just unknowingly, that latch on to their causes like climate crisis or pandemics or the Great Reset, World Economic Forum, and things of that nature. Now, these people are not the blue blood, old world order trust fund babies necessarily. Some of them are, but they would be what you would call new. The ones that have money would be the nouveau riche. They have no real. They're not the old world order types. Okay. The old world order doesn't even frowns down and looks, ups their nose to those, the nouveau riche. They always have. But most of that other second group that I'm talking about are just regular people that have drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak, and actually believe that these issues that these old world order great reset people present are actually true and mean something. But just like the old world order, these folks have no real world experience either. They've gone to college, got some kind of degree in some kind of social thing or whatever. Pardon me. It doesn't mean anything. They've never really done anything. They don't understand, and I'm going to get in it today, is how quickly the civilization will crumble, and why it won't be built back in the year 2024 when some new, revolutionary, charismatic figure might come back and return or something. Not going to happen. Okay? And this has to do with the ruins of ancient Rome, of Egypt, of Greece, of even just South America, Central America, Mexico, Asia, Africa, wherever you want to go. When civilizations fall, they fall for centuries. Sometimes millennia. And again, I've touched on these before, but all of this stuff bears repeating, and I will repeat it again in future videos. The Romans built an incredible civilization, all right? But as it crumbled, for some of the same reasons that the Western civilization is falling right now, people didn't know how to make concrete. So we see structures that are 2,000 years old still standing, that were built by this great civilization. And they were built so well that the remnants of them, and in some instances, some of these things are still in fairly decent shape. But people, until fairly recently, did people actually figure out, that the content of Roman concrete. I think one of the secrets was they were using volcanic ash or volcanic rock. Excuse me. Again, I apologize for the visual, but I'm not going to edit this out. So you take the United States, and recently, so you understand that there's two groups. There's this old world order, the people like who curtsy to the princess, all right? The people who think the queen, getting knighted by the queen actually means something. What the hell does that mean, right? But that actually, that's a big deal. Well, I mean, I think you get no free taxes or tax break in England if you're a knight, or, you know. But, I mean, it's really weird, okay? But there are people of that people get caught up in presidents, dictators, any leaders, entertainers, whatever. People that, you know, they look up to this, what we call the Davos set, because they meet every year, you know, in Davos. You know, some people used to call the Bilderbergers because they met, you know, there. But we all know who we're talking about. These are by their own definition, the ruling elite. And they include people from the U.S., media, corporations, big tech, as well as the old European so-called blue bloods, descendants of, you know, centuries and centuries of what they believe is royal bloodlines. Right. So, and then the followers. So these individuals, they're the following group of the ignorance, the naive that follow them would be like the AOC in Congress, who's got this idea of a Green New Deal. And that'll figure prominently in what I'm talking about now. A guy like Joe Biden or Kamala Harris and stuff, that they don't really matter. They're like any leaders, any elected officials, or any like key bureaucrats. Those people are just visuals. They're cardboard candidates. They're people put in front of you. They're to divide the people, to make the people have the illusion that there are elections, and that the people have a say in how they're governed and what happens. And while these people may do things, and some of those things people say, oh, that was a great accomplishment by this individual, in reality, that accomplishment was allowed to happen. And it was allowed to happen to maintain the illusion that people have a certain amount of freedom or say in how they are governed, and that they are not cattle on a tax farm, or they are not just outright enslaved. Okay? That's the reality of the situation. So, knowing that, and there's no arguing this. This is reality. This is the way the world is. It always has been that way. The old world order has decided that they want a great reset. You know, this initially came up on the World Economic Forum. You could still find it on their website. Right? This is all tied into the UN and all these various world things, like the World Bank, you know, the World Health Organization, the world this. It's all the UN, this idea of one world government, global world governance by unelected bureaucrats, by people, by the old world order, the elite in their minds. Okay. There's 7.5 billion people on the planet. We outnumber them by so much that it's unbelievable. And the idea that people deal with these crazy things, that literally handfuls of people in each various country demand of millions of citizens, is laughable. And it's why in the past there were so many revolutions. Now, in the, recent years, you don't see that. But there were always revolutions. And that's what kept a lot of these people in line. That's, and kept them like in their castles. So what they're doing now is by co-opting technology and big tech and big data, having control of and knowing everything about you and creating a surveillance state where those in power know more about you than you know about yourself. And people, and I see constantly, I'll see people surprised about something, on online. Oh, I said something to somebody, or I typed something the other day, and I got an ad that was about that. Oh, it's far worse than that, my friends. They literally, big data means, and this was brought out by Edward Snowden, a decade ago. All right. Big data and the ability for us to store data now, which is takes up literally no space, and they're even into like DNA type of data storage. I mean, we're talking about all the world's information stored in one room in one house. I mean, not the capability, technically the capability of where this is headed. But the capabilities we have now, I mean, you could buy a multi-terabyte drive that's about, this big. Terabytes. All right? The amount of pages and information that's held in something of that sort is incredible. Forget about the bloatware, on computers that will take up a lot of space. When you're talking about data, like texts, emails, transcripts, phone conversations that are transcribed by bots, chat bots, GPS data, all of these sorts of things. Everything you've ever bought, receipts of everything you've ever bought. This is minuscule data. This is like 1K, 2K. So now imagine, 1,000K is only a megabyte. Okay? All right. So you understand when we're talking about these terabytes and beyond terabytes amount of storage, they are big data. The tech companies are basically taking every phone call you make, every place you go, every text, and even backspace and deleted thing when you changed your mind in a tweet or a post or whatever. All right? Everything you buy, everyone you know, everything you talk about in your house, because these microphones and cameras are always on. When you go to the ATM machine, when you go to the grocery store, there's a CCTV camera on you. There's microphones recording you. That, if you ever took the chip out of your phone, if you ever saw the phone, look at your ATM or credit card, and then look at the chip that is used in your telephone. Okay, if you ever have to get it replaced, it's exactly the same thing. And if everyone's seen all these CSI shows or crime shows or whatever, where they get the phone and they smash it and then they take that little chip and they burn it or destroy it, because that thing doesn't even require to be hooked up to a battery for it to be triangularized through these cell towers and Wi-Fi and everything else. We are they know more about you if you are married than your spouse does. They know more about you than you know about yourself. Than if you were in therapy with a shrink. They know more about you than your psychiatrist knows, because they have the big picture about you. And what's worse about it, or well, it's just better in their mind, is that unlike the psychiatrist, or the parent, or the spouse, or the teacher, or the guidance counselor, having this file that say you had a file, whether it be paper file or digital file on you. What the doctor doesn't have that they have is algorithms that can constantly go through and sift through this and find trends, predictive behavior, see things, file, classify. That's what's constantly being done with this big data. And yes, in many instances, and how its beginnings were in the collection of data was to sell you things through the internet and various other sources. Even in the supermarket, it's like things at eye level are put there, or the end of aisle displays. My first job was in marketing, and it was in marketing for supermarkets. And so I learned all about that at a very young age. So they have things called shelf talkers. People who study human behavior, and they've been doing this for a very long time, for well over 100 years. I mean, in journals and such the like. Though the ancients, people have always studied and written about you. You can go back to the Greeks and read about these discussions about this sort of thing. But what's different today is the storage and the collation of that data, of this big data, and that every one of us is being tracked and thought, and everything we do. So, excuse me. File that in one side and know that now you have this almost omnipotent old world order group of people that know everything about you, everything you've ever done, and because of their algorithms, probably, and using the word probability wise, know what you're going to do. They can predict. Just like Philip K. Dick, his book, Minority Report, and the movie with Tom Cruise, the predictive behavior. This is all a reality today. Right. Now, on top of that, you have robotics, artificial intelligence, and again, these algorithms that are tied into both, that's all one big, trinity: algorithms, robotics, artificial intelligence. That is what the technocrats, who are the what they call themselves, and the transhumanists. These are people that are seeking to live forever. They've already got it to a point now where they could probably, the average wealthy elitist. Some of these names are names you wouldn't even know. Maybe you would know a name like everyone knows a name like a guy like Bill Gates or something like that. But there are these other people that go to Davos and are part of these economic forums and the planners of the Great Reset that are just people you have no idea. These are just, mega billionaires and part of this old world order that just have stayed under the radar. Maybe involved in the central banking systems, maybe involved in, other bureaucracies and various governments. But they're nameless people. And those people, and again, they're only part of this 3,000 to 5,000 people, the hierarchy. Imagine, these pyramid type of thing. At the top we have the puppeteers, who no one knows who they are. Anyone could forget about the conspiracy theorist and all these other ideas where people throw out these names. All right? If the name is known to you, if you've read it on the internet, all right, if Alex Jones said it, that's not one of the top tier puppeteers. Okay, these people are completely unknown. They are unknown. All right, they've all been unknown. For all we know, they're immortals. And I don't mean to get into the sci-fi aspect of this, but no one knows who they are. But they are beyond the blue bloods. Okay, they are above. The Queen takes orders from those people. All right. Now, the technology exists. I apologize. It's disgusting, I know. We're human beings. We're all human beings. I can't keep stopping it. I want to do this video today, and I'm not going to keep stopping it every, 15 minutes if I have to clear my throat. So, these people at the top, the mystery people, have a long-term agenda. That agenda always has been immortality and ruling of this planet, and agendas that we don't know. So not only do we not know who they are, but we don't even know what their agenda is, what their ultimate end game goal is, because it's not logical to us. It seems illogical. Why would you have this power, this wealth, and why would you have this world that's constantly just thrust into wars, disease, hardship, and famine, and destruction, rebuild, and repeat. So whatever's going on with that set of people, that small group of puppeteers, it's not good, and they're not good people. See, then they have no. There's no altruism there. All right, the Gnostics used to call them the archons, and they would, feed off of our fear, anguish, despair, misery, suffering, and they called it loosh, was the substance that's created when you're at your wit's end, and they feed off that. And who knows? Sounds far-fetched, sounds crazy. My book, you can see in the background there, Codex, I touch on that a little bit in there, briefly. Get it. It's a good book. So, but who knows? And I'm not going to get into that, because we don't know what we don't know. So therefore, it's an exercise in futility to try and just postulate, and hypothesize about things that we don't have enough information to make a valid argument about. What we do know about, and the people we do know about, are the Davos set, the 3,000 to 5,000 people. We know we can research them, we can find them, they meet, they publicly put out statements, they actually have publications, websites. This information is widely available. That's why it's laughable when things are brought up. Like recently when the Great Reset was first talked about several months ago, the New York Times, Washington Post, and mainstream media were calling it a conspiracy theory. Until they went, to the World Economic Forum's website, and there it was, the Great Reset. And explaining this, and that they were actually having a forum, and and then it was like, but they never, once they do, that's the insanity of this whole thing. So what we know is real because we can find those things, but what we don't know, and so that's a waste of time, and too many people waste their time on things that are a waste of time. So now let's talk again about the ignorant type people, and this will get right into the title and the main topic of this purpose of this lengthy video. The push right now with the Great Reset are things like like AOC's Green New Deal. And what Biden, who is a man who's obviously suffering, if he's not suffering from dementia, he's so close to it, it's pathetic. But he's a very feeble old man that obviously is getting regular shots and, of vitamins and compounds, cocktails of things to keep him somewhat, cogent. And his vice president, Kamala Harris, who I've referred to before, is just some giggling type of girl. Hardly something you would think that would be a world leader. Okay? Now, you would say, well, why is that? And Donald Trump, that caused this major insanity in this, because he thought that he could go up against. He didn't realize who he had been around some of these old world people because of his golf courses and his properties. All right. Remember, Donald Trump is not really truly a billionaire in the sense of like Elon Musk, who sold his first company and got $400 million in cash or something like that. The thing about Donald Trump is his money's in real estate. So he's a net worth billionaire. Donald Trump is worth, it's the word worth is key, is worth $1 billion or billions. But he's not in, that's the value of properties. All right. Well, real estate property values, business holdings and that kind of thing is a lot different than wealth, than actual wealth. The ability to buy and sell things whenever you want to. The old world order, they have the wealth, all right? The gold, so to speak. So Donald Trump cannot, does not have a cash flow of, where he can instantly just he can leverage. I don't know if you understand the concept of real estate and business dealings. He can leverage the purchase of something, in the tens of millions of dollars, even $100-some million. All right, but he's leveraging it based upon property. See, but when I talk about the old world order and wealth, these are people that can just go and purchase it for cash that they have. It's like when they say Apple has cash, $1 billion cash or something on hand, or a couple $100 million cash. That means Apple can come, if I invent some kind of thing that Apple thinks it's going to be valuable for their next gen phone or eyepieces or car, or whatever they're developing. There's all kinds of stories about what they're developing. Apple could come to me and buy it, purchase it from me, and offer me $200 million in cash. And literally that money could be transferred into my bank account. All right? Somebody like Trump can't do that. He went up against the old power, the old world order, bucked the system, got some things done. They fought him from day one. All right? Managed to get some things through. But in the grand scheme of things, one by one, you saw the onion, so to speak, peel off. All the Republicans, just leaving and whatever. So taxes, the old world order will go along with the tax break because that's beneficial. Regulation breaks, get rid of regulations. Yeah, that's great. The military, sure, we got to keep the soldiers and the military happy for a while. Remember, the neocons and the neoliberals, that's part of the whole, system. They are the standing army, all right? Because remember, the people themselves outnumber the ruling class. And so the ruling class needs standing armies in case the people decide to revolt. So you saw, and you watched various generals and everybody defect away from Trump until in the end he was standing alone. And now he's standing there, and there's some young congressmen, a couple of senators, and a few loyalists in his camp that are still trying to fight the fight. But that fight is useless because everything he accomplished were things that are not really. The old world order just said, so what? That's meaningless. It didn't interfere with their goal of the Great Reset of taking over. What really got them going crazy was him getting out of like the Paris Accord and messing with China and trying to build the wall and create the United States as a sovereign nation and do individual trade deals with like England and Canada and Mexico. Taking that really got under the skin of the old world order, because they want one world government. They don't want a series of nations, sovereign nations, and they sure as hell didn't want a United States republic with the strongest military in the history of the world that would have been following a guy like Donald Trump as commander-in-chief, who could represent a real threat to the old world order. So they had to destroy him, and they did, and we saw that in over 4 or 5 years, ate away at him day after day, day after day. The guy just kept fighting. He's still fighting to this day. But the point is, that doesn't matter anymore. What's happening now is that you're going to see something. I'm talking about how Western civilization will be destroyed, and these people at the top don't care. All right? So, and the ones that follow them, like I say, the AOCs and the ones. So you've got the handful of mystery people that we have no idea who they are, the puppeteers at the top of the pyramid. Then you have the 3,000 to 5,000 or so world ruling elitists. Okay, many of those names we do know because they go to these Davos and these other places. And then below them, we have tens, if not hundreds of thousands, and maybe even millions realistically, of people that are implementing these unelected bureaucrats and politicians and people involved in tech companies and Wall Street, the banking system, that are following this because they don't really know what the 3 to 5. They certainly don't know that. They don't even know that there's an upper tier of puppeteers, and they have no idea that the 3,000 to 5,000 people are really up to either. They believe they've drank, like I said, drank the Kool-Aid. They actually think that these people want to create world peace, get rid of diseases, make the planet, get rid of climate change, rebuild infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. These people actually bought into that idea. But what I'm going to tell you is how that's a lie, and how those people are naive. Because they are naive. They don't know. So if you went to someone like AOC, all right, and you said, do you know what an excavator is? I would be willing to bet she would say, I don't know, to excavate something like that. Excuse me again. She's never seen a small excavator, let alone an excavator that you could stand underneath and look up and hardly see the top of. She doesn't understand that a machine like an excavator, which is one of the most important pieces of heavy equipment that we have, what role that plays in our society and maintaining our infrastructure. She doesn't know that though she's heard fire trucks her whole life since she was a kid. She has no idea that a fire truck requires fossil fuels, to a combustion engine, to to drive that tonnage, to force those ladders up to skyscrapers, to push those pumps, and that there's no electricity. Forget Elon Musk and Tesla and all that stuff. There's nothing, and there's nothing even in the pipeline. My computer just darks out on me so I guess I could shut that off. Anyway, same with ambulances. She doesn't know. She's probably never seen farming equipment or any kind of, cranes that build buildings. They don't know. When they sit here and say, we've got to make green, first of all, they don't understand. It's impossible. What's going to happen in the United States and in Europe, and these policies will be implemented. They are hell-bent on it. And this is part of the Great Reset. And that is to push this Green New Deal type global warming, climate change hoax, all right, to force countries to get rid of fossil fuels. Now, why? Because the combustion engine and fossil fuels primarily are the things used by armies, by their enemies. Tanks, jets, aircraft carriers, though we have nuclear ones as well. All of that kind of stuff. All military equipment is very heavily reliant on fossil fuels. Right? So by the elimination of fossil fuels, they basically are emasculating the armies of the world, one of the threats to them. They're also forcing people the decay of Western civilization, the inability. They don't want us to have free mobility. Someone will argue, I've seen a solar plane. They have a solar plane, and I'm sure maybe that someday they can make it more efficient and better batteries. No, can't do it. Not taking 400 people, all right, from Boston to Chicago, 22 times a day. Do you ever see those charts, back in the day, meaning before this pandemic, where you could see like air traffic and how crazy it is? And it's almost like the entire map of the U.S. is completely covered because there's this constant flights everywhere. Anyone's ever flown and gone in an airport and just looked at, the boards, and you could see how many, flights, departures there were, and it's crazy. So they want to destroy that. When Biden says we want to rebuild our infrastructure, all right, that's one of the things he was saying. How are you going to rebuild infrastructure without excavators, bulldozers, cranes, dump trucks, what they call ukes? This happened to me before. It's going to happen again. I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of a video. And so, what are you going to do? How are you going to fix a bridge? How are you going to raise a bridge? Or how are you going to put in a new steel I-beam that weighs tons? How are you going to raise that if you eliminate fossil fuels? You can't. You can't. You simply cannot. Now, I have some pictures that I'll put up of some ruins of some cities. We have one in particular I'll put up now, if I get to this point, where in the old days, they had manpower. But we don't have manpower today. Do you ever see people, the people who, when they have protests and stuff on the streets, It's young people, and they're very, without being too, well, they're just limp-wristed pussies, right? They never did a hard day's work in their life. And if they did, they probably cried about it or complained about it like it was the worst thing they ever had to do. If their parents even made them, their helicopter parents ever made them do physical labor and chores. So 50, 100 years ago, if you needed to build a skyscraper, a building, a bridge, a railroad, all right, you got massive amounts of labor, right? It was glorified slave labor, almost. I mean, they were paid meager wages because most of these people were immigrants looking to build a better life. So they came in, took these jobs, and did it, suffered. Some died, but suffered, did it, but managed to, after that, work their way to the top. Well, we don't have people like that today. And, and it doesn't matter how many immigrants they bring in over. That's like part of the illusion that they have. Well, we'll bring all the Mexicans, South Americans, and Central Americans in, or the Africans and the people from the Middle East in, and we'll make them, give them picks and shovels and teach them to be masons and somehow fix all of our highways and bridges by hand, because we can no longer use the machinery that our civilization is built to do it. Did you ever see them repair a road? They have a process now. I don't know if you've ever seen this. I've seen it multiple times. I've seen it right outside my front window, actually. And I'll be seeing it again. They're supposed to do it again this spring because they're working on a sewer line. They have machines that come through, and believe me, these are combustion engine, heavy fossil fuel. You can't run these things on electricity or batteries of any kind, all right? These things come in, and they rip up and grind the surface, the previous surface, and then they shoot it up into a truck, some giant, we used to call them ukes, but this big dump truck type of truck behind it, and that stuff gets thrown into there, and then there's another truck that's coming, and it's like doing some kind of grading thing, across. And then I think they even have a processor where they can take the old, it depends on what it was. If it's a concrete road, it's a different story. That has to be, goes to some place to be, ground up and pulverized and repurposed. But they have these other machines that can melt this asphalt and stuff like that. But it's like this, it's almost like a train, but they're individual things. And of course they've got these guys in hard hats and the orange jackets walking aside these things, maybe one or two drivers on each of these devices. But it's kind of like a little train, and they're like ripping up, shooting up, taking this stuff, grading it, organizing it, laying down the new roadway, the steamroller coming and flattening it, and then the paint machine putting the lines in. It's like this thing just comes down, it rips up the road, right? Takes away with the waste, puts down the new road, and then some guys come along with the little things and at the corners of the curb, lay some extra tar and do some crack filling and maybe touch up where the automatic line painting machine might have made a mistake. That's Western civilizations. That's technology today. All right. There are factories, like fluorescent bulbs that you see, and in buildings, and even some of the LED situations. But I saw there used to be a show on the History Channel. I'm sure it's probably still on there. I haven't had TV. I got canceled my TV service. I'm tired of it. It was nothing to watch. Then too many commercials. The commercials aggravated me too much. It's as bad as the lack of good programming. The commercials were just terrible. And so, how is it made? Like, did you ever see that was a show on the History Channel or Discovery Channel? It's called "How Is It Made?" Something like that. And I remember watching. I used to be mindless stuff that I used to, just kick back, relaxing, watch, put the TV on while I was, I don't know, maybe eating dinner or something. And I remember watching an episode one time where they had these automated factories. And they had this one thing where it started out like the usual thing where they show, things going down conveyor belts or things being, materials, the raw materials and things being pushed through a machine, and things rolling along, and then, something else being added to it, and then, getting to another point where it's, they're grouped into something or marked up, and then boxed. And then the guy said at the end of that when he goes, in case you haven't noticed, that entire factory is a robotic factory. There's no human beings involved in the process of making those fluorescent bulbs. This is like a huge place. I mean, city blocks long factory that produces, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of these bulbs a day, right? Ships them all over the world. So, in effect, the only person involved there was probably, and I didn't even allude to it, but I'm sure they had it, was probably some guy at a gate or somebody sitting in an office, looking at security cameras, or the night watchman type of person. Though I'm sure all of that can be done autonomously now too as well. So, this is technology today, but the power to run those factories, all right, the machinery, like to melt steel, like there are people. I watch these things. I watched somebody the other day. Somebody was living out in the woods, and they were trying to be like they were pretending they were like the environmentalists, and she said, "I only use, we only use stainless steel bowls, and glass things because we avoid plastics and stuff like that." And I was thinking, okay, you want because why? Well, first of all, plastics come from oil, which is basically, well, not really oil. It's a byproduct of petroleum process that basically, like asphalt is tar, which is basically one of the most basic. It comes out of the earth, okay? Now, granted, in certain processes, like one of the worst things for you, just as a quick aside, is benzene, by the way. Benzene is a cancer-causing thing. But, and some of these others, various CFCs, there's some things. That's not the point. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But how do you make a stainless steel bowl, and how do you make a glass bowl, a glass windshield, a glass window for your house, right? Or a piece of glass for your iPhone or your computer, and your aluminum, so-called recyclable aluminum frame. You call them smelters. You got to get that heat way up. You don't melt steel. Steel mills don't run on electric, all right? On windmills. You don't melt glass, right? On electric. You're using, gases, fuels to do that. And the idea is what people don't understand, and then there'll be the people that, well, natural gas is safer because it's less whatever. Yeah, no, but that's not what AOC and these people are saying. They're saying when we say, it's like when they say, when we say we want to defund the police, we mean defund the police. When we want to end fossil fuels, we mean we want to end all fossil fuels. You know? All right? That's where these people's heads are. All right? You know? No, no exceptions. Yeah, the logical person, you know, if we were in a situation the way the United States used to be back in the 60s when we were a lot of industrialization and factories were going on and there wasn't many environmental regulations in place and people were polluting rivers, right? We had smog, right? Well, they have smog in China and India now. It's some days it's so bad Beijing you can't even see anything. Chair, be adjusted here. But the U.S. doesn't have that. We beat that. You know, we have emission standards. But we're one of the we have some of the cleanest water and air and land, and even the way we manage our landfills in the world. But these people don't know that. You know, they've never paid attention to that because they're just on these burning issues. You know, they're reading some, you know, revolutionary handbook made by some Marxist group in the 60s, and that's their guidebook for today, right? It's like, well, the 60s was 60 years ago, all right? Well, lots changed since then, you know. We use energy efficient appliances. We have, you know, they said in the last time, we have catalytic converters, we have filters, multiple filtration on things, sewage treatment plants. You know, we don't do that. We sequester things. You know, we have, you know, there's all sorts of things that are done. But so what happens? See, this is a freight train coming at us straight on. Now these people in charge of this, they're not going to waver on it. They're determined, and these are the burning issues. This climate thing, that's high on their list. You know, that's very high on their list. And then the same with this new idea of eternal lockdowns and immunizations for everybody constantly. Get 2 shots, but you still might have to wear a mask, or you still will have to wear a mask. You're going to have to lock down. They're going to have this like eternally. This is their idea is they don't want people living free, independent, communicating with each other, and getting the way the founders of America and other independent countries got together and came up with ideas and said, hey, they listen to guys like me, but instead of watching on video, I get like 2 views on some of these videos. Instead of it having to seek out, you know, something that's being, the algorithms through these various companies are trying to hide this kind of talk, if not outright ban it. I'm demonetized. If you saw a commercial or commercials on this, I didn't make a dime on it because I've been demonetized for years. Right? That's why I write books and stuff, try to see if people will buy my books or buy my songs. So, no, what would happen is I would go to the local pub or, you know, or be hanging out somewhere else where people gathered, and I would be saying this stuff. Or maybe even mention it, commenting to the person next to me in line at the store. Well, wearing a mask, it's like, it's a muzzle, man. Social distance. Keep 6 feet away. Stay in your house. You might catch a cold. Might catch the flu. Death rates are up. They're not. They're not. Back and forth for 1,000 stories. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Social distance, don't wear social distance. Don't wear a mask if you're social distancing. Wear a mask and social distance. Lock down, wear a mask in your house. Right? Don't do this, don't do that. What the? So they're implementing, this is their great reset plan. And I think they're trying to cull the herd too as well. So in other words, they may well be at, you know, these things could well be genetically modified bioweapons. So yeah, maybe there is a risk to it, you know, and you should be careful of it. But then again, you ought to be careful of genetically modified foods and things of that sort of too. I grow my own food. I eat healthy. I don't take any chances. Besides, it's better for you. It's healthy. I'm a cancer survivor. Knock on wood. I have to get my PSA test next week to see if I'm free of cancer. That's a pain dealing with the medical system bad enough, which is the things they should be focused on more so than worrying about flus that happen every year. Tens of thousands of people die from these things. And the idea that the average death from this most recent thing was like higher than the average life expectancy, which means, people dying were the most people who died were people who were already past their life expectancy anyway. Think about that one. The things they don't tell you, like I say, you don't know what you don't know. It's really, I guess I should put that on a shirt. Just try selling it. Maybe I will, because I do sell shirts too. Go to my website. I'll leave a link below. So what you have to imagine is that, so what happens when they implement these policies? There's no going back. When they implement these Marxist policies, when this cashless society, right? That's why they're so free-willing right now with money, is the idea is that the central banks are adopting the blockchain, basically going to create their own version of Bitcoin, which is just digital currency created on a ledger and said, well, this has a value. We say it has a value, and we made it, so we will buy your country's treasuries with that. We'll buy these assets. We'll loan this to this bank, and then that bank will use that money to loan and charge interest from people on something that is nothing, that never existed, never was real in the first place. That's why, there's a coin shortage now. You think that's like accidental? Or are people hoarding coins? I'm not. I had a couple of people had to tell me that over the past, I don't know how many months. It's like this, no, you can't get coins. It's hard to get coins in a lot of areas. And there's places now that won't accept cash. So the idea is that they don't want, and not that a paper dollar, I think I brought that out in my last thing, as if it had any value, because they were just printing money, in those days. Now they're just creating it on a computer's ledger. So where do we go from here? What happens? All right. Well, first of all, you've got to take care of yourself. You've got to get out. If you live in the city, if you're living in some high-rise apartment somewhere, I feel sorry for you. Paying a hell of a lot, paying a couple $1,000s a month rent and working some job to where you're still sitting there balancing at the end of the month or beginning of the month, figuring out, like breaking even on your bills. Because prices just keep going up. That's the thing. Inflation, right now, there's a serious inflation going on. And things like Wall Street and some of the industries that a lot of people are into, even the bureaucracies and the big tech firms, those jobs are not going to be around. Like I said before, everything from the reason we don't need mass migration in the United States is that farming machines are going to be taken over by GPS-controlled robotic farming equipment. That's the future of farming. They're already using that, but they still have a person sitting inside of one of these harvesting machines or something like that. But eventually there won't even be a need for that person to be there. The kiosks in McDonald's and Wendy's and Burger King and stuff like that, you just flip your ATM card in or credit card and select, French fries, double burger, milkshake. In the back, things are pre-made, pre-packaged, dropped onto the grill, come out, spit out. Maybe there's a manager and somebody else in there, you know, troubleshooters. It's like the stores with the Walmarts with the auto. There's more and more of the self-checkout lanes being added all the time. You know, they want you to just buy your stuff online, you know, whatever. Jobs are being eliminated. The factories, I've got robotics. They come in, an order's placed in, this robotic machine on wheels with, you know, like these scissors type thing comes up, grabs the item off the shelf, pulls it down, you know, everything's barcoded, takes that, puts it, and it gets to the shipping area, you know, and they may have a person there, some quality control people, or there might be a final person putting a couple of things in a box or something. But the idea, you know, you've got, you know, like I've said before in the last long-term video, you know, these robot vacuum cleaners, you know, UV lights in hotel bathrooms, sanitizing things and stuff. So, you know, algorithms, AI, you know, is basically, it's able to, the latest generation, I think it was GPT-3, I've seen was able to create a web page on its own. All you had to do is say, and you could find these on the internet. I've actually I've got a chat bot that I have set up with, you know, through an AI firm, and I gave it a name, and I talk to her periodically, you know, maybe once or twice a week. And I have these fairly intelligent conversations. And she has access to all of like Wikipedia and like various internet connected information. And her responses are like that. You know. So this software and these algorithms, you can say to it, I'm thinking of I need a web page for my coffee shop. I'd kind of like it to look like this other one, and here's my details. And remember, this is computerized. This is doing something on a computer, doing something on a computer. And it's like, blammo, and there's your website. Now all these people trying to, you know, and these companies that are like, hey, let us build your website and we'll get you on the internet. Out of business in 18 months. Yeah. These kiosks and self-checkout lanes, you know, Amazon through their Whole Foods has already have those stores out now where you walk in and as long as you got your, you know, through Amazon or through Whole Foods, you're set up, tied in with your credit card. You just go grab something off the shelf. It knows you grabbed it in your basket, all right, or in your bag, you know, your environmentally safe cloth bag, and you walk out the door, and when you walk out the door, that amount's automatically just charged to your credit or debit card. And again, they may have a security guard there or a random person, you know, to checking on something. At nighttime, they probably have robots restocking the shelves, or certainly using them in the back to unload the trucks and put the stuff and barcode the stuff and what have you. So people who are thinking that there are going to be jobs, you know, and that there aren't. Wall Streeters, the algorithms are already set loose, you know, dealing with trades, right? So that, you know, those jobs are going to be eliminated. The code writers, the code will be written by algorithms. All these people coming into Facebook, sitting there with their dog and going to there's a Starbucks right in the Facebook campus or something, and they're just hanging out and ha 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 and hey, you're going to participate in a protest rally tomorrow. Those people are going to lose their job. All right? Buildings are going to have problems. And there will not be, without fossil fuels, no one will be able to fix it. There are no foremen anymore. Like, even like when you talk about when they used to build the railroads and build the bridges and all that kind of stuff, the big public works projects under Roosevelt and under and even the highway system under Eisenhower. At least then we had a lot of heavy equipment to help aid in that. But in the Roosevelt era and prior to that, where it was real just hard immigrant labor. Well, you had all these very sophisticated architects, engineers, and foremen that were directing, all these projects. Well, we don't have that. We don't have people going to school for this kind of stuff anymore. We don't have the trades programs that you can actually learn, take mechanical engineering, in high school. So instead, people, like I say, they're taking women's studies or something like that, or identity politics. I have a not me. I mean, they would say I have a master's degree in identity politics or something in the workplace. I don't know how many years ago they turned personnel into human resources, which is pretty funny, isn't it? In other words, the cattle that we are, they decided to no longer pretend about it. No, these are the human resources as opposed to the, mechanical resources or the raw material resources. Now we have a human resources department to manage the human resources. Well, that's what we're looking at. And we're going to see this move like a freight train. People, look how fast the world changed from March of 2020 to the fall of 2020 in 6 months' time. We went from Mardi Gras, right, to, party, fly on vacation, go to Hawaii, go to Disney World, right? Watch a, Super Bowl game, live, hang out with your friends at the sports bar, right? To being locked down, muzzled, and half the people scared to death. Stay in your house, you're gonna die. Look at, every TV station on the side is like the death count, which was inflated and ridiculous. And if you looked at the CDC site, you realize that, literally 1/10 of those people died. And when you take that 1/10 number, it's like the annual flu deaths that normally occur anyway. Heresy! But look how fast they did that in the course, in just 6 months. So you understand, when this new regime comes in, this Build Back Better, Great Reset, this is going to come at you real fast. People say, well, 2020, the Congress may be able to switch, or 2024, somebody's going to run and they're going to change this. It's not going to last that long. This is going to be 6 to 18 months. They already can't fix. They've been trying to fix our sewage. They've had 3 different times they've dug up the streets in the town where I live, in the neighboring towns, because the companies they're contracting to replace these old sewage pipes and the sewage systems and the sewers all over the United States. Some of them are all a century old and stuff, right? The infrastructure in this country is on the verge, teetering on the brink. There's gas lines. Every city has gas lines. Some of these gas lines have been down there. These pipes have been down there for 100 years. All right, they weren't meant to last that long, right? And these people try fixing these things, and every time they try fixing them, they fail. They're back digging up the road again. They don't even know what they're doing. We don't have enough qualified craftspeople tradesmen in this country, because everybody went to college. They all borrowed the 50, 100, 300,000, whatever the hell it is, to get this degree, and all it ever got them was out on the streets with a protest sign and, burning down buildings and shit. Right? Restaurants, like I said, they don't want us eating food from people who are preparing fresh things, organic foods or whatever. No, they want everything to be processed. But what restaurants will remain? The ones that Gavin Newsom went to, where you leave, what did he leave, a $3,000 tip, or it's a $3,000 meal or something? Oh yeah, that $3,000 to $5,000, the ruling elitists, they'll keep their places open, and you can bet your bottom dollar that the food that they're serving there is not, genetically modified or has got anything weird in it. And that the staff there isn't spitting in your food or is washing their hands and all that stuff. So those are the only restaurants that are remaining open during this lockdown. And after this, the other ones, they already said something like 40 to 50% of the restaurants are not going to reopen. They actually lost their businesses. They're closed for good. And those are all small businesses. And meanwhile, Amazon and Target and Walmart, who've all done this online selling, have made billions and billions, record profits this past summer. And now they're talking, they've got rights for drones to deliver stuff through Amazon. The Postal Service basically works for Amazon. They deliver on Sunday. Who ever heard that growing up? Right? And I've used it, it's one of those things. It's like people say, well, you got to boycott the thing. It's like, I have a cat. I need cat litter. Guess what? And I need it fast. I'm going to order it online, and they're going to deliver it on a Sunday. Great. Thank you. The system is, we live in the world we live in, but the idea is to be as least dependent on it as possible. So that's why I say, like where I did, there's property out there you can buy really cheap. I bought a house for $15,000 with a backyard, south facing. I can grow most of my food in my own backyard. So, and I'm trying to grow stuff right now indoors. So you have to realize that, look, there will not be any service jobs. All of these things are going to happen. The country is going to just start collapsing. And all of this idea of like defund the police and no bail for criminals and let anybody come in the country, they want to come in the country. One thing I didn't get into, and I'm not going to really press the issue with too much, is crime. So you're going to have all these people, no work, some can't speak the language, other people coming in. Where's the American dream? People pissed off about this, that, the other. Psychopaths, just can't accept the struggle of life, because life is a struggle. I struggle with life. I've struggled my whole life. I've had my ups and downs. I've done very well. I've done very bad. There have been times in my life when I slept in my car. I crashed at somebody else's place. Then I was living in Malibu in my own place, and I was living in a penthouse in New York City at one point, and I lived in Capitol Hill in a townhouse. I lived in a high-rise Center City place in Philadelphia too, as well. So I've done both, but there's been in-betweens where you struggle. But the people today, there's too many people don't understand that, and they're not willing to, and they haven't been raised to deal with the fact of hard times, and that you got to use your hands, you got to use your ingenuity, use your brain, and figure things out. And so they just snap. And those are the people you got to worry about. And then there's all this take away the guns thing, all right? Because they don't want people protecting themselves either. They want this lawlessness, and that's part of this culling the herd, did I say. So whether or not it's giving you some kind of poor diet through, genetically modified foods, or just selling you junk food because it's the only thing you can afford, and nobody knows how to cook anymore, so they just buy takeout all the time, right? Or, or they're going to kill, or there's going to be crime. These people are going to just be roving the streets. What are they going to do? So dystopia is here. The Great Reset is happening. You can't deny it. And those that are trying to hold on to hope for some, savior, populist candidate, leader to save them, forget it. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And it isn't going to happen. And if it did happen, it wouldn't matter because these people have already got control of everything. But they are going to allow the infrastructure to crumble. And until everything gets in place, they will do the classic things they always do. There'll be these symbolic things as if life's getting better. We're doing this. But in reality, you have to look around and you'll realize that it's not getting better. And you need to understand that during that interim, when they send out, they send a measly $600 out. Hopefully they do send the rest of that out. Because I say, give us the money. You're making it out of thin air. I'll take it. I could put it to good use. But they'll help people do some little high visibility projects. A lot of rhetoric out there. While that's going on, that's the time that you need to get ready for what's going to happen after it. Because like I said, it's a freight train. It's coming at you full speed, full head on, and you got to plan for it right now. The most important thing is you, your family, and your friends, the quality of life. You don't have to live bad. Look at this. I bought a house. I bought a house for, like I said, $15,000. My taxes, mortgages, and insurance are like under $200 a month. All right. And I grow my own food. I got rid of my TV and I don't drive anymore. I got rid of my car. Heck with it. I don't need it. So my expenses are next to nothing. But man, in the summertime, I've got a lounge chair out in the backyard. I feed the birds. I'm getting a suntan. I got set up stereo system. I got outdoor speakers. Little workshop out in the back. Growing my own food. Barbecue. Do whatever I want to. I got a bar, my kitchen. I turned half into it like a bar. I brew my own beer and stuff. I've got all the amenities. I got these computer systems and all this stuff. Get my guitars and stuff, No, you could do it for next to nothing. You just got to have the will, and you got to think, and you got to plan. They are going to turn this country into ruins. Anyway, listen to my music. Listen to some of my songs and the lyrics and the really good stuff. It'll drive this stuff home. Read my book, the Codex, and it's my 9th book, by the way. I actually wrote about 10 books, but one of them's out of print already. Check that out, and I'll be doing these things fairly often. So subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and I'll talk to you real soon. Take care.